Today is the 30th of March, 2011. I'm Darrell Peterson, a volunteer at the Palm Springs Air Museum in Palm Springs, California. As part of the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., we conduct interviews of veterans and civilians who participated in our country's military conflicts. Today we're interviewing Corporal William Garton, who was served during the Korean conflict, and we'll be talking about that and many other things that he's experienced. It's nice to have you here, Bill.
Glad to be here.
And
part of the museum.
We'll get started by having you pronounce your name, spell it, and then tell us where and when you were born.
Yeah, my name is William S. Garton, G-A-R-T-O-N. I was born in Sioux City, Iowa, March 29th, 1931. I went to school there, and I lived in Sioux City until World War II started, December 7th, 1941.
Okay.
Shortly thereafter, my dad went from Sioux City, Iowa to Seattle and went to work for Boeing Aircraft Company, making B-17s.
Okay.
And a few months later, my mother and I and my brothers got on a train and we rode 3 days from Sioux City to Seattle, Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Moved in a housing project, all five of us.
Oh,
And
so you had two
had
brothers or two
two younger brothers at that
brothers?
time.
Okay.
And so I grew up in Seattle. I was 11 years old and went to school in Seattle. And during World War II, I don't know, most people don't know what a barrage balloon is, but we had barrage balloons all around Seattle to protect it's a big balloon that goes up there. And we had a barrage balloon detachment of soldiers about 6 blocks from where I lived.
Oh, okay.
And I used to hang out at that barrage balloon thing. And I knew most of the soldiers there. And they'd give me pins to put on my jacket. And I told one guy if he'd give me
where was that again?
in Seattle, Washington.
Yeah, I know, but what specifically?
We lived in a housing project called High Point.
High Point.
And
Okay.
it was built for people to come and move in the area and live. If you worked for the defense plants and shipyards of Boeings, that's where they could
So
get
was
inexpensive living.
Was that near Boeing Field?
No, it was not. It was West Seattle, quite a ways from Boeing Field.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
My dad
right.
used to have to ride the bus to work.
Okay.
And-
Well, tell me a little bit about your parents. Where were they from?
And my mother and father were both born in Sioux City, Iowa.
Okay, and before them, their
Grandparents, my
parents?
grandmother and grandfather. My grandmother was born my mother's side was born in Norway, and my grandfather was born in Sweden.
Uh-huh.
And they came to this country in 1885, I think it was.
Okay.
And my grandfather was a tailor, and he worked for the same company for over 50 years and walked back and forth to work. Raised 9 kids.
And this was always in Sioux City?
They lived and died and ended up passing away in Sioux City. And after my grandparents passed away, most of his daughters and his son all moved to Seattle also. So we had practically the whole family come out to Seattle during during World War II and right after World War II.
Yeah. What were the names of your grandparents then?
Sven and Christine Peterson.
Oh,
A real
Peterson.
Scandinavian.
Yeah,
Yeah,
with
they
a
were
D or a T?
Pardon?
Spelled with a D or a T?
Peterson, Sven.
P-E-D-E-R?
No, P-E-T-E.
Okay, because
Peterson.
I'm Peterson.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of those around, I guess. Okay. All right. So, how about your mother's side or your
That was my mother's
grandmother's
side. My dad's side. My dad was his father was adopted, so he was an orphan. So I don't really know too much of very vague. My dad didn't know really much about his father because right after my father was born, his father left and he never saw him again.
So was
he
that
grew up with his mother. My grandmother's her name was Bertha Garton.
And
she raised my dad.
That was in Sioux City?
In Sioux City, Iowa.
My
yeah.
goodness.
And
yeah.
she came out to Seattle also.
Oh.
During World War II, so she followed her son out there. So we had quite a bunch of people out there from Iowa.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what did Okay, your dad wanted to work in the defense industry. Was
Well,
that
the
because?
pay was so much better. He was,
Okay.
Sue said he was a car salesman, and didn't make much money. We didn't have much money. We lived in a little apartment house and didn't have much, and he could make a lot more money, of course, moving out. He went out with 3 other guys. They drove from Sioux City to Seattle, and they all went to work for defense plants in Seattle,
Mhm.
and all became very close friends of my family till
Okay.
the day they died.
Yeah. Was, I guess there were a lot of people that did similar things.
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
farming.
But the thing
and,
is, I wanted to mention the fact of a cute story, I think. I used to hang out in this barrage balloon outfit,
Yeah.
and I had an aunt that was single, and the sergeant of the guard there, I told him if he'd get me some sergeant stripes, I'd get him a date with my aunt. And I did,
Oh,
and she went
that
out with him.
worked
She
out.
could have killed me for doing it, but she said he turned out to be a nice guy. But that's where
Okay.
I just fell in love with the Army. My grandfather, when I was a little boy, took me to a 4th of July parade, and I saw the soldiers march into the band playing the flags, and it just kind of stuck with me. And World War II, I was 11 years old. I wasn't old enough to go into service, so.
Yeah. Do you remember hearing about Pearl Harbor?
Oh, absolutely. I was December 7th,
were-
and I was 11 years old, 1941.
Yeah. You-
And what was I going to say? When I graduated from high school, I went to West Seattle High School. When I got out of high school, 1948, I joined the Army.
Mhm.
And when I joined the Army, the reason I joined is if I joined the Army, I could go to Europe. They said a big sign in front of the group of it, join the Army and see Europe. And I
Okay.
figured that's the best way. Probably
Yeah.
never get to see it anyway.
Yeah.
But I went in with 4 guys that was from West Seattle, went into service about the same time, and 3 of my buddies went in the Marines, and I went in the Army. They tried to talk me to go in the Marines, and I always wanted to be in the Army. And by chance, they all went when the Korean War started. They were some of the first guys to go to Korea,
Hmm.
and all 3 of them got the Purple Heart.
Wow.
They all moved into Korea.
Nice.
I went to Germany, and when shortly after the Korean War started, I served my time in Germany until I got out. I left in 1952, and then I ended up in the Korean War.
Hmm.
But I had a good experience in Germany. I was in the 508 Military Police Station in Munich, Germany, and from there I went to the Military Police Highway Patrol. I patrolled the Autobahns between Munich, Germany, and Salzburg, Austria. And one of the biggest thrills I had being in the Military Police Highway Patrol, in August of 1951, General Eisenhower came back in as NATO commander, and he and his wife came to Germany and came to Garmisch, Germany, and we picked him up, and I was his escort for 3 or 4 days.
Oh,
in
my.
Garmisch,
So
Germany.
you
Got to meet General
got to
Eisenhower.
know him pretty
Was
well
his
then?
personal escort, so
Yeah.
it was a real thrill.
Yeah.
Our company, the 508 MPs in our battalion, did all the guard duty for him. He was very popular. The streets in Germany, with the Garmisch would line up with people waving American flags for him.
Yeah.
So that was a real thrill.
Hmm.
Another thing I did at Germany that I was very proud of is I caught the largest German brown trout ever caught. I caught a German brown trout
So
that
your
weighed.
name's on a plaque
Yeah,
somewhere?
it is. It was a German brown. It weighed 37 pounds.
Oh, my
It was
gosh.
48 inches long. And I caught it. Was fishing with a major and a tech sergeant, and it was in September, colder than heck. And I was casting, and nobody ever caught a fish that big there. The Germans used to laugh at us, thought we'd never. And I caught this fish, and they did. They had it mounted. They hung it in the bar of the hotel. And by catching that fish, I got my picture in the Stars and Stripes newspaper.
Okay.
And General Eddy, who was commanding general of European forces at that time, a lieutenant general, saw my picture, and he called my commanding officer, and he says, "I want to go fishing with that guy." So I took General Eddy fishing. We caught fish, and we had lunch with him.
Not that
a
big.
corporal and a 3-star general. I was the most popular corporal in Germany at that time.
Mhm.
And we caught fish, and went to lunch, we had a beer together. He could have been he was just a fantastic guy.
Yeah.
2 weeks later, I took General Parker fishing. He was the Provost Marshal General of the Army at that time. Same thing, we caught fish, had a beer, had lunch with him. And shortly thereafter, I went back to the States, and then I went to Korea. I got to Korea in January of 1953, 6 months before the war ended.
Hmm.
And I was in the 6th 22nd Military Police Company, I Corps, and we patrolled we were pretty far, we were awfully close to the front lines. We could hear the battle going on.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of escorting, bringing troops, getting them on the line, off the line. ammunition trucks, supply line. We did also had a detachment at Panmunjom. We did all the guard duty when they had the peace talks in Korea. And I have pictures of General Harrison, who one of the generals, lieutenant generals, assigned for peace treaty for us, and also Lieutenant General Namil, and he was from North Korea. I was there when they had Operation Little Switch, Freedom Gate Bridge, the first prisoners that came over in April of 1953, and had a good experience. And when the war was over, they signed the peace treaty in July 27th, 1953. I was a company courier for a while, and I got pretty well acquainted with our company commander. And he called me in his office one day, about a couple months after the war was over, the peace treaty was signed, and he said, we're going to build a PX and a listed man's club, and I want you to be the manager. So it was a great deal for me, because I got to move out of my tent into a Quonset hut. And so that's what I did. I ended up running the PX and the club until I came home in 1954. And came home in a troop ship. But a quick story about going to Korea. It took us 21 days from Seattle to Yokohama on a troop ship. And we got 2 meals a day. We had to stand up and eat. And the food wasn't worth a darn. And you know what the quarters were for the 4 berths in a row. And I was on the bottom part, 5,000 guys. And we came in at Incheon. They took us in on landing craft. And my first meal was either a C ration or a K ration, I can't remember. It was in January, and it was below 0. And the can of beans I opened with my little can opener, it was like you see, put bacon grease in there, bacon in the grease in the refrigerator. So I had a nice white coating of grease on top of my can of beans. So my first meal was a can of beans, a soda cracker, and a little chocolate bar. And I hadn't had any sleep for about 24 hours. When I got to my company, the first sergeant says, "We need you on patrol." So I got sent on patrol. The first day I was there. So. But it was the best part of being over there was my buddies. They great guys. We had a MASH unit. We were close to River Station. The guys I
were
worked
able
with
to stay with the guys that
we lived in tent. I think we were 6 guys in the tent.
Okay, and you all knew each
And
other.
the winters were the worst part. The winter was, it got 30, 40 below 0 in Korea. There's no place to get warm. We had a little pot-bellied stove in the tent, but it's so cold, the condensation from the oil tank into the stove would freeze and the stove would go out. So we had no heat, and there's no place to get warm. So you'd sleep with your clothes on. But then the summer times was just the opposite. They had monsoons and humid, and that part you're taking a shower. Sometimes you go 2 or 3 weeks without taking a shower. In the wintertime, all the water froze. In the summertime, the monsoons would flood all the streams and rivers, and you had muddy water. So, But I came back in 1954, and my girlfriend, when I walked down the gangplank of the ship, I got down at the bottom, and there was my girlfriend standing there waiting for me.
Wow.
That was 57 years ago. We got married. We've been married 57 years.
Oh, congratulations.
So I've had a good life, and I just had, yesterday was my March 29th, I had my 80th birthday, and my wife and I bought it for our birthday. We bought a new car for our birthday.
Oh, wow.
And our kids came down, and we celebrated. Our friends were here from out of town, so I've had a really good life.
Okay, and how many children do you have?
I have 2. I have a son that's 48 and a daughter 53.
And what, are they still in Seattle?
They live in San Francisco Bay Area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's
And
closer.
both have good jobs, are working, very proud of them. And I have a grandson named Eric, 6'5". He's in Europe now for 3 months on a vacation of it.
Oh.
Lucky guy.
Yeah.
We got an email from him last night. He's in Prague, Czechoslovakia, but he has friends over there, and he's relatives in Austria, and he lives staying with them. It's a great experience for him. He's going to go back.
So is this part of college, or?
He has 2 years of college. He's an A student, and he's been accepted to University of California, Davis, so he'll start there this fall and finish up.
Great.
And my daughter works for Nordstrom's. She's been there for several years, had a real good job.
In San Francisco?
And my son-in-law has a really good job in the coffee business. And my son works for Men's Warehouse. He's a manager for them.
Oh.
So we're very proud of our family.
Yeah, sounds like they're doing well. And you get to have nice new clothes all the time.
Yeah.
Men's Warehouse.
Good deal, yeah. Yeah. But I've been lucky. My wife is, I give most of them credit. I was a traveling salesman, worked for Mead Corporation, and I was on the road all the time flying. I covered the whole western United States. She was home with the kids.
And what corporation was this?
Mead, M-E-A-D,
And
a paper manufacturer out of Dayton,
Okay,
Ohio.
all right.
One of the largest, and I worked for them for many years and traveled
So-
all over the western United States, from Hawaii to Alaska and Far East as Denver.
But your home was still in
Still in
Seattle?
San Francisco, yeah.
Oh,
I always
San-
worked out of my home.
oh.
I never had to go to an office to report to an
Okay,
office.
so you.
I was a sales representative.
You moved from Seattle to.
In 1973, I got promoted, got sent from Seattle to San Francisco.
Okay,
And
and
we
how,
lived-
how did you meet your wife?
I met my wife, and I took my mother to church, and I met my wife in church, and we started dating.
In Seattle?
Yeah, it was in Snoqualmie, Washington, a little town east of Seattle.
I know where it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Snoqualmie Falls.
Yeah, she used to be a waitress there when she was going to high school, the
Hmm.
Snoqualmie Falls Lodge.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a famous place.
So I decided retired. I've been retired 21 years, and we live in Sun City and played golf. And I lost the sight of my eye about 3 years ago.
Oh.
So my golf game went to heck. And so I've been to the museum several times, and I should have volunteered to come down here many years ago. But I've been here now about 4 months. I just finished the school, and it was very interesting. And I love it here. I work with some great guys in the European hangar. I've learned a lot about I knew a little bit about airplanes and the
Yeah.
military, but I've learned a lot since I've been here. I really enjoy it.
Mhm.
Great experience.
So you've lived in Sun City for 21 years?
I lived in Sun City, for 13 years. When I first retired, we built a home in Tucson, Arizona,
Okay.
but I was allergic to Arizona.
Oh.
And everything, rains, they get like 14, 15 inches of rain over there, so everything grows, ragweed, rabbit brush, and I was allergic. So I went to 3 allergists, and they put me all those needles in the arm. I lived up like a Christmas tree, and they all told me, said, you couldn't have picked a worse place to retire. So I used to come to Palm Springs on business, and Linda my wife has a cousin living here, and we'd come over here, and I felt fine here. So I said, let's sell our house in Tucson and move to
Okay, well,
Palm
that
Desert. So we did.
brings you closer
So
to
we moved
your
here
children
in
anyhow.
1998.
Okay. Let's see, I was gonna ask about your wife. Did she have an occupation, or did she?
Well, she
keep
yes,
track of the
she
family?
worked. She stayed home with the kids until the kids became late in their teens, and then she went to work for in San Mateo area near the San Francisco Bay. She went to work as a medical terminology secretary, administration part. She could take shorthand, and she knew a lot about medical terminology. She had a very good job. She worked there for almost 14 years.
Mhm.
And we both decided it was time to retire. I was 59, and she was 55, and we said we were lucky in real estate, and we saved some money. And,
Off you went to Arizona.
so we went to Arizona, and we loved it over there. And so we've been retired 21 years.
That's great.
But I give all my credit to her. She was
Okay, well,
she's the love of my life.
yeah, obviously after how many years?
57 years. Well, it'll be 57 years in November. I keep saying it's 57. She says not quite.
Okay, well, whatever, it's still a long time to be with the same person, and not many make it anymore, so.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know if there's any other experiences you'd like to share about your travels, and how much did you get to see a lot of Europe when you were in Germany? Or
And when I was in Germany
What's your
in
wish to?
1950, 4 of us from our outfit in Munich, one of the guys, Ralph Hovis, had a 1937 Opel, and 4 of us drove from Munich, Germany to Paris, France.
Mhm.
In September 1950, he spent 2 weeks in Paris in that 1937 Opel. And we got to Nancy, France, and the car broke down.
Oh.
So it was in the morning. It wasn't anything serious, I think a radiator hose or something.
Mm.
And we got the car fixed, and we had breakfast in Nancy, France. Got to Paris and parked the car. We had stayed in a little French hotel, and the lady, we got our our meals and our breakfast there, and she treated us just like our mother. But one thing I remember about Paris, we were in 1950, all the restaurants and stores you'd go into, there was a pictures of two people, and one of them was General Patton, and the other was Marcel Sedan, who was the famous French middleweight boxing champion.
Oh, really?
And every time you'd go in a restaurant or something, you'd look, there would be their pictures.
National,
So proud of them.
national hero. So what was the?
I had a great experience. Another good experience I had in Germany when I was in the Highway Patrol. I escorted Pearl Mesta. Pearl Mesta was the ambassador to Luxembourg. She was a delightful lady. They made a motion picture about it. It was starring Ethel Merman and Donald O'Connor, called "Call Me Madam," Broadway play.
Okay. Yeah,
and I escorted Pearl Mesta many times, and she was a delightful lady. One time we were taking her from Munich to Salzburg, Austria, and her driver blinked his headlights, and that meant for us to stop. And he said, "Mrs. Mista is hungry. She wants to get some lunch." So I said, "Well, there's an American snack bar not too far from here." So we pulled in, we had lunch, and she was going to pay for it, but all she had was German marks and American dollars. And they wouldn't accept it. And I said, "Mrs. Mesta, this is my treat. Here's a lady that's an ambassador and multi-millionaire." She was delightful. She said, we stopped at the border, and she said, "Now, you guys are," she gave us a big hug, and she gave us her business card. She says, "I want you," my partner was Red Cutter. She said, "I want you guys to come to Luxembourg and be our guest at the embassy." Like a dummy, we never did it.
Oh.
Yeah. So,
Missed your
one of those
chance.
experiences.
Yeah.
But I did a lot of escort work. And we did, in our patrolling the Autobahn, we had, most of the problems were auto accidents. We saw some really terrible auto accidents. So that was what our job was.
Yeah.
Escorting and patrolling out, helping people that broke down. It was a great experience.
What was the general situation in Germany at that time? Were they still
Well, we were the
rebuilding?
occupation force, 1949, 1950. We controlled.
And this was after the Marshall Plan.
The Marshall Plan went in 1949.
Yeah.
And we were there, and they started building, and we had authority over the German people.
How
We
did they react?
I got along very well with the German people. I think you get treated like you expect other people to treat you. And I had some very good friends that worked in a hotel where we stayed, and snack bars in different places. And, I got along very well. A lot of them were, and we worked with the German, what they call Polizei was the police department, and the Land Polizei was the highway patrol. And most of those guys during World War II went to Gestapo. That was the police. So when they got out of the German army, they went back to the police department. But I got along real well.
They were not
It was a great
retaining any of their.
But they were tough cookies, let me tell you.
Nazi tendencies.
Yeah, they were all.
Yeah,
It was a great experience.
It's interesting how quickly things can change.
Yeah. Well, I was very fortunate when I lived there was 12 of us stationed at a place called Rasthaus am Chiemsee, 50 miles south of Germany. We had maid service. Each guy had a private room. We were on separate rations, and so it was quite a culture shock from going from there to Korea.
So at that time, did you go into Paris in uniform, and did you?
Yeah, we had to be in uniform in Paris. We had a great time. We took what they call the modern tour of Paris and the historic tour of Paris. And we went to the top of the Eiffel Tower, went through the Louvre. We did, we had a great time.
So the French people treated you well?
They were
too?
very
They're
nice. Yeah.
still,
At that time in uniform, we were pretty popular guys over there then. Yeah. Before we went over, our buddies that had been in Paris before said, make sure you take extra cigarettes and coffee with you, and also an extra pair of low-quarter shoes. And I found out why. We got over, we didn't have enough money. We sold the cigarettes and the coffee, and each one of us sold a pair of low-quarter shoes to buy gas and feed us to get back to Germany. Those days we didn't have much money,
Yeah, so Paris was still rebuilding too.
It was, but everything was pretty inexpensive at that time. Yeah. But Paris was lucky that that German general didn't pull the plug and blow all of Paris up like what Hitler wanted him to do. So it was a beautiful city. And my wife went back. We've been to Paris. We spent 12 days in Paris. We took her on one of our anniversaries. We went over there. We spent 12 days in Paris, and we spent 35 days in Europe. We went to all the countries over there. And then on our 50th wedding anniversary, we spent a month in Italy. The two of us, we flew into Rome.
You did get to see the world.
Yeah, I've been very lucky. We toured the Amalfi Coast and Rome and up into northern Italy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a beautiful country. All right, well, anything else you'd like to cover?
No, I can't think of too much. I probably left out some things. I don't want to short anybody, but.
Well, do you have any recollections of going to school in Seattle?
Yeah, I went to Gatewood Grade School and James Madison Junior High and West Seattle High School. And I grew up with all those kids.
So were you active in sports or anything?
No, you know what I did I came from a family that didn't have much money. And all through high school, I had a job.
Mm-hmm.
I got an early dismissal. I got out at 2:30, and I went to work at Cress's 10-cent store. I was a stock boy, a janitor, cleaned the bathrooms,
This
swept
was
the floors.
in the West Seattle one?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I got my spending money.
Yeah.
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 So, and I worked at the Washington. When the war ended, I was working at the Washington Athletic Club. It's a men's club in Seattle.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll never forget the day that the war ended in Japan. I was a busboy.
Uh-huh.
And all the busboys and the waitresses went and got all the paper napkins we could find. And we went to the top of the building. It's a 26-story building. On the roof, we threw all the napkins over the top of the building.
That's your own confetti parade.
Yeah. So that was quite a thrill at Seattle on BJ Day.
Yeah.
It really was.
Everybody
Everybody went downtown that night. The streets were packed, and the servicemen and dancing. It was a great experience. Something I'll never forget.
Well, it's something that was a big issue, and people were glad to have it over with.
Yeah, boy, they sure were. Yeah.
Everybody was involved in it
Yeah.
one way or the other. So. All right. Well, I'd like to thank you for your service to our country, and thank you for doing this interview with us today.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it very much.
Okay.